So, the panel discussion. This is very exciting. It remains for me to introduce these wonderful people. Convening the panel will be Michael Short. He's over there. At the moment, Michael is a senior editor at The Age, and he is an ambassador for the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre, a very passionate individual on this and other human rights issues. Julian Burnside, most of you I'm sure will recognise, QC. He is an amazing warrior for human rights and a particular friend to asylum seekers and refugees. He is a patron of the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre. Pamela Kerr, you probably most of you recognise from the media also, she's in one of those programs that I forgot in my list, Detention, Rights, Advocacy. You will never meet a more determined advocate than Pamela, I guarantee you of that. And just quietly, if there's anyone from ASIO in the building, she's the one you've got to watch. One you've met already, I need to say no more about him, and so I hand over to Michael. This is for questions. We are forming behind 2 microphones. Where are those microphones? There's one over here with Sophie, there's one over here with Hayley. We're going to be going into questions in about 10 minutes, but if you want to get in there first, I'd go for it now. Excellent. And just a quick reminder, this is not questions about volunteering. You'll have an opportunity to ask those questions to individual staff members afterwards. Michael, have fun.
Thank you.
Get that out of your way.
Thanks, Patrick. Good evening, everybody. I think the key word here tonight is community, and Con is going to be talking a bit more about that. Panel is going to be talking about detention, and Julian will be talking about the law. As Patrick was saying, there are 2 microphones, so start making your way there should you wish. I'm sorry, for the people upstairs, you're going to have to come down if you wish to ask a question. As I say, this bit is about you, so let's try and keep it moving. Let's keep the questions precise, concise, and as Patrick said, not about volunteering, but about this situation. But this part of the evening is about describing the context within which you're volunteering or looking at volunteering in the situation. I'm supposed to be talking a little bit about media, the tenets of journalism, really accuracy, particularly when you're talking about the who, what, where, when bit of journalism, the advocacy and activism comes in with the why and how bit. Where I think the Australian mainstream media in part has been letting the nation down a little bit, and Greg talked about how he felt about it when he started to volunteer, is that the facts have not been coming out. Now, I don't know whether that's because of an agenda in certain parts of the media, but even in the reporting areas, I don't think the facts have come through sufficiently. The facts that it is push factors, not domestic policy, that influences the number of people seeking asylum. The fact that it is not illegal to seek asylum in Australia without papers or to arrive by boat without papers, on the contrary, as founding signatories to the UN Charter, we have an obligation that it doesn't come out enough. It doesn't come out enough that the cost of mandatory detention, let alone in human terms, in terms of suffering and mental health of people who are already in difficulty, the cost in economic terms is ridiculous. These things need to come out more. The Age, for which I work, has maintained a consistent editorial line in support of the view that the way in which both sides of domestic politics have treated asylum seekers is a great shame. It is indeed shameful. We will continue to do that, and some of us will continue to write about it. But I think that one of the things I want to say tonight about media before moving on, because we're going to go a few minutes each, is that the term social media is something that I don't think adequately describes what's going on and the power in your hands. And I would prefer to call it open media, and would encourage you to circumvent the process and go directly to politicians, as Greg was saying, write to them, but you can also tweet, you can be on these various platforms. They are publishing platforms, and they're in line with the idea that community is happening in the leadership in this issue, on this issue and in other areas in Australia, from what I'm observing anyway, and the stuff that I'm writing about, and it's very uplifting for me. as Greg's saying, there's a lot of hope, is the leadership is coming from the ground up, not from the top down. And community leadership, I think, is no better exemplified in Australia than the ASRC, which provides about $20 million worth of services to some of the world's most marginalised people without taking a dollar from government and on a budget of about $3 million. So the reason that happens is because of people like you. There are 900 people that have been driving this organisation for more than a decade. And community leadership is the opportunity that I think is offered tonight and being discussed tonight. I'm going to close my remarks now. We can throw things about as we go along, but this bit is for you. So I just want to go first to Julian, then to Pamela, then to Colin for a few minutes each to put the context, as I said, on law for Julian, detention for Pamela, community for Colin. Then it's over to you. Thanks very much.
Okay, I didn't know until I got here that I meant to talk about law. And I have to say,
You're winging.
whenever I'm asked to speak about the law in this area, I'm embarrassed to be a lawyer, because law is supposed to lead to justice, and the law in relation to asylum seekers in Australia almost completely guarantees injustice, and that's offensive to us as human beings, it's offensive to us as lawyers. The law in this country says that if you come to Australia seeking asylum and you come by boat because you couldn't get papers, you couldn't get on a plane, you couldn't get a visa to come here, if you come that way, the law in this country says that although you haven't committed an offence, although you have not done anything but seek protection from persecution, you must be detained indefinitely. You can be sent to Nauru or Manus Island. Because of the ludicrous idea that people have to be detained indefinitely for months or years with no end in sight, it means that when there's a spike in arrivals, sometimes the places fill up. And so then they're released into the community. But they're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to study. They're given 2/3 of the New Start allowance, which is not enough to survive in anything like a decent way. If they're sent to Nauru or Manus Island, they are told explicitly by the Australian Department of Immigration that how long you stay here depends on how the no advantage policy applies to your case. First time round, the Pacific solution produced self-harm after about 12 to 18 months. It takes that long for people to lose hope and fall into despair and start harming themselves. This time round, because the government has specifically tried to deny them any prospect of hope, it's taken 6 months before self-harm starts. That's because of what our government has done. Morrison is the person we really need to focus on. Scott Morrison, the Minister for Immigration, has recently issued a command in his department that the people who arrive by boat seeking asylum must be referred to as illegal maritime arrivals. He has said publicly before the last election that people who are placed in community detention must be required to report regularly to the police. They shouldn't be placed in the community near vulnerable people. They shouldn't be placed in the community near children. He regularly refers to them as illegal entrants. It's a lie. It's a lie deliberately calculated to demonise people who need and deserve our help and your support. We should never tolerate government ministers who lie to us. And Scott Morrison has been lying to us for years, and he maintains the lies in office. He shames this country, he disgraces his office, and he shames all of us because he wants to mistreat asylum seekers. Last year's election, it's actually worse than I make it sound. Last year's election disfigured the Australian people. Last year's election was the only one in our contemporary political history in which both major parties have tried to outdo each other in promises to be cruel to a selected group of human beings. It has never happened before. I hope it never happens again. And the technique they use The technique they used is first to demonise them and then to get political kudos by promising to mistreat them. They promised to protect us against asylum seekers. We don't need to be protected against asylum seekers. The asylum seekers, 9 out of 10 of them, deserve to be protected against their persecutors, and we deserve to be protected against dishonest, hypocritical politicians. What Con said before is absolutely right. The Abbott government, by its speech, the Labor opposition, by their silence on the issue, have misled the community into thinking that we need to be protected against asylum seekers. They have disfigured this community. They have betrayed Australian values. They have betrayed all of us. And by your presence here tonight, you are showing we are better than they give us credit for. Don't let them get away with it. Thank goodness for all of you for coming along to help the ASRC. Thank you.
You managed all right, didn't you?
What's that? Sorry, the foldback's terrible. I can't hear you.
I was just saying you did all right.
Oh, okay. We'll call that Law 101.
Pamela, a couple of minutes from you, please.
Pamela?
My role at the ASRC is, as Con said, the refugee and detention rights. So what does it mean? I visit detention centres. I talk to people. People talk to me. Today, I got a phone call from Manus Island. I don't know how this man found my number. He told me he was a university lecturer in his country of origin, mechanical engineering. He told me that he had nothing to do up there, that it was an appalling place where people were going mad, and the only thing that they could do was every morning at 10 o'clock and every afternoon at 4, they gather together and they peacefully protest. And the PNG staff are telling them that they're breaking the law by doing so and that they will suffer the consequences. This man asked me if there was any chance of getting a chess set. He also wanted a dictionary. He told me there's a Syrian man who asked to go home because the place is so bad, and he was told, no, it's too dangerous. So he went into the bathroom and tried to electrocute himself, unsuccessfully. That's the downside. The upside, on Saturday I was out at the Mitre, and you know, people look after each other in detention. It's an amazing place. All those different nationalities, all those different languages, they can't communicate, but they do look after each other. And someone pointed out this couple who had been brought from the community and were going to be deported. For the last 3 days, we've been working with lawyers, various lawyers from, I work with lawyers outside, I work with different community groups, and today we crunched it. We finally got the story, got it through to immigration, and they backed down because they were afraid of the law. The law is what stands between us and utter incivility, utter barbarity. And the law is all we've got. Julian's right when he says sometimes it's, you know, you look at it and you think that no other area would they get away with mucking up the law the way they do. But it is all we've got, and we've got to support it, and we've got to use it to fight. Immigration do not want things into the courts because the court is the place where they can't keep people in the dark. They have to provide the evidence. They have to produce the documents. And they don't want you and us to see and know what they're doing. So that's part of my role. Thank you, really, for being here. It's been one hell of a week. And when I see all of you sitting there, I think the world is not such a bad place. Good on you.
Okay, we've got until
I
8.
was just going to say that I think that's the first time Pamela's been more optimistic about the law than I am.
It's all we've got.
Jesus Christ.
We've got until 8:15. I think that we have to get out pretty precisely. Con, do you want to add any things to what you said earlier before we get to questions?
Look, I'm just going to quickly drop a couple of facts. A quick couple of facts. Context. We're being told there's a crisis, and the only crisis we have is one of leadership. You look at a country like Turkey and Lebanon, in 37 days, they received more refugees than we've received by boat in 37 years. You look at the idea that there's a myth of a queue, 99.43% of the 43.5 million refugees and asylum seekers globally will not be settled anywhere in the world in this coming year. You look at the myth that asylum seekers are earning 4 times the Australian pensioner. 78.5% of the people we work with live on 0 income a week. You hear the myth that these people are illegal. We signed the Refugee Convention 2 weeks ago. We celebrated its 60th anniversary. And we are the only industrialized country in the world that has suspended it for refugees who come by boat, even though 9 out of 10 of them are found to be refugees. You hear the myth of economic migrants from 2008 to 2013 until they stopped processing people, that 90 to 94.5% of people coming by boat were found to be refugees. You hear the myth about the cost of these people. The money we're spending on detention last year would have funded the ASRC for 2,000 years. The cost to detain 8 babies on Nauru is our organisation's budget for an entire year to care for 2,000 refugees. On numbers that we host, we're 86th in the world. We are the only country that indefinitely detains children, the only country that uses offshore processing, the only country that has a no exception mandatory detention policy, the only country that has a blanket refusal to let all these people who come by boat work. We lead the way in cruelty. There's nothing for us to be proud of, and context is critical. Let's go back to questions. Thanks.
And you know, a strange thing there is that the ethos that people would say unites Australia in its multiculturalism as well is justice and a fair go. Go figure. Okay, first question. Hayley, you've got somebody over there?
Hi, my name is Robert Ackroyd. I was interested in your feedback to know what would happen if gradually over a period of 10 years, we through monthly picnics, we could in 10 years' time run 10,000 picnics right throughout Australia, where refugees taught Australians how to cook meals from their homelands. Australians taught refugees how to cook Australian food. Then as over the months and years, as Australians developed friendships with the refugees, they invited them home for dinner, invited them to join their local clubs and community organisations. Obviously, with a local club or a community organisation, they might have 20 members, or they might have in excess of 200 members. So not all the members would have an opportunity to develop friendships with refugees, but they'd have an opportunity to develop...
I've got good news.
Yes.
We're working on that, and when I wrap up tonight, I'll tell you how it's coming.
All right, well, I'm already working on it. Let's partner.
Indeed, let's do it. Thank you.
Sophie.
Hello, my name is Noel Kazali. I have a question for Pamela. What are your thoughts on community processing?
I know that people in detention become very sick, they get depressed, and they lose their spirit. I know that even though it's tough coming out, I've visited many people in their homes since they came out last year, and you know, they're living in Broadmeadows and Reservoir and Lalor and Dandenong, and I tell you, a lot of those places are not grand, but they are still 100 times better off in the community, where they're able to look after themselves, where they're able to do and make decisions about their lives and their children's lives than they are in detention. Detention kills people. It really does. It kills their spirit.
Can I add something to that? As a lawyer, I've had to go to our ordinary criminal prisons a number of times, and obviously I've been to detention centres here and in other states a number of times. Without exception, the atmosphere in detention centres is more depressed and depressing than it is in any criminal jail I've ever visited. You know, it's really, really, they're toxic places. And we are destroying people because we put them there when they've committed no offence, and we leave them there for as long as it takes, and we can't tell them how long it'll take. It's appalling. And it's ferociously expensive. I mean, consult your self-interest. Consider that this year the government will spend $4 billion locking up innocent people. If all of those people who'd arrived in the previous 12 months, if all of them were released into the community on conditions that they kept in touch with the department, on condition that they are allowed Centrelink and are allowed to work, and I would add a condition that until they're processed, they should remain in a specified country town. If every single one of them remained on Centrelink, it would cost $500 million a year, not $4 billion a year. And all of the $500 million would go into the economies of local towns, country towns, which are desperately in need, especially Shepparton right now. They could use the extra income. It's an appalling way of spending your taxes, throwing people into detention and throwing away the key.
Next question over here.
Hi, I'm Michelle and I'm a Justice and Outreach Coordinator at a Catholic school here in Melbourne, and I'm really angry. I'd like to congratulate the man standing for having the bravery to represent the media, because in my mind, I blame two groups, the government and the media. This is a campaign, as you said, of lies. Why isn't the media in a democracy, 21st century Australia, having the front page, shame Australia? Boat people are not illegal. There are about 10 words you could use on that front page to turn this around. Please, why?
Well, I think that's a great... It's a great point, but it takes no courage for me to be up here tonight because I've been trying to do my bit. I'm writing editorials for The Age. I've been doing it in The Zone because I believe the same things that people do up here. I don't want to get into a sort of slanging situation with, not with you, but with another major media group here in Australia. But this is where I think that I'm very angry too, because there is a requirement on my profession to be accurate in news stories and to clearly identify opinion and analysis and other sort of non-newsy things. And I would not seek to disabuse you of your disappointment on that. The question is, why is such a campaign being run? That's what I don't understand. Next question.
Thank you. My name is Rob Sullivan. One of the things that it's clear that we can all do immediately is to write to politicians and replace myths and lies with facts in our communities. I would just like to know, is there a repository or something we can access to get the facts? I mean, we've heard a lot of facts tonight, many. I can only remember a few of them.
We have up on, if you just Google ASRC, we have an amazing up-to-date under Learn More on our website. Every Mythbuster and fact sheet. If you follow us on Facebook and Twitter, there are daily updates. It's a great place to start. Knowledge is power. Start there.
If you follow the ASRC's Twitter feed too, if you're into that sort of thing, it's full of factoids and links and statements like that, and I would encourage everybody to just retweet it, just amplify it. It does get noticed, and change is happening from the ground up in a lot of areas.
I spent election day talking to people, handing out how to vote forms for another party. And I think Com's being generous, saying that we're fighting ignorance and apathy. What I was fighting that day was anger, and fear was part of it, but it was absolute hatred. And I have a lot of people that I can be in touch with who don't read Fairfax papers, who read Murdoch papers, and therefore are getting so little facts and figures about what's happening, and they aren't really taking up on the social media, that part of the group that I have contact with. So my question is, we've got a big group here, how do you fight that hatred on a personal level? Because we're not getting it through on whole lot of media because it's being blocked at a top level. How do we fight that on a day-to-day? What are the arguments to use?
Julie,
Yeah.
I remember you at a breakfast that we had, and it's a very powerful anecdote. You might want to share it again here about engaging with the people that started to bombard you when you started to become involved.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure how well that would work, but I mean, when I first got involved in this issue, I would get tons of hate mail, and so what I did was to answer all of them politely, and it was actually very entertaining because, they'd write these ferocious, really, really intemperate emails to me, and I'd write back saying, "Oh dear so I gather you don't agree with me, but thank you for writing. But did you realise this and this and this and this?" And interestingly, most of them replied. Every reply was polite, and there is an important message in that. Anger usually reflects fear, and fear can generally be dispelled with a mixture of facts and politeness. Responding with anger or desperation is no good. But I think your point is a larger point, and I don't know what the right answer is, except make sure and speak carefully, politely, considerately to all the people you know who don't agree with you. Get the word around that way. And I think Robert, the first questioner, raised a good point, about community dinners. I think it'd be a terrific idea if things like that could be got going, or even at the local town hall, have equal numbers of long-time residents and new arrivals, so that you break down the barrier of suspicion and prejudice that separates us from people who actually are really quite like us once you get to know them. Beyond that, I'd be glad for any insights on that one, because I've tried everything for 12 years and I haven't worked it out yet.
I did convert a few of them, but politeness was the thing that I found, and the facts.
Yeah.
I found that too.
Yeah. We must write a polite letter to Janet Albrechtson.
Hello, I'm Josie Brannigan, and I suppose this question has been prompted by what Pamela was saying, but may also be directed to Julie. And if the law is what we've got, what would be involved in a class action? And the other question is, if we are going to use that law, what about talking about something like targeting Morrison for crimes against humanity?
I like the second idea. Section 268.12 of the Commonwealth Criminal Code gives real prospect for that. The only problem is that only one person can lay a prosecution for a breach of that section, and that's the Attorney General of the Commonwealth. And George Brandis may not be the one to do that. A class action actually wouldn't get you anywhere. I've thought about that, and I just don't think there is one that can be brought. One action that appeals to me, and if there are any solicitors in the room who feel like taking on a bit of a challenge, I think it is not legally possible for a Minister of the Crown to direct a public servant to lie or mislead the public. I think that Morrison's directive to call irregular maritime arrivals illegal maritime arrivals is probably an unlawful directive. And I'd love to bring a case in the federal court which simply seeks that declaration, because then he would face the prospect of a federal court judge saying, you're not allowed to call them illegal, because it's dishonest.
So I think sometimes, too often in history, it's been after the fact that, these people have been brought to justice. And, I'm quite emotional.
One thing I can let you know that we're also working on at the moment is we plan to take the Australian Government to the Human Rights Commission, and we plan to lodge a formal complaint that they are in breach of the Racial Discrimination Act through a code of behaviour that targets only refugees and that is racist in its foundation and its application. So that's coming.
But you know, you're right to be emotional. It is emotional. Right now, out at the Broadmeadows Mitre, there are 4 pregnant women who've been brought down to have their babies. 3 have got their husbands with them. The last woman has left her husband in Dadaab, one of the biggest refugee camps in the world in Africa. When they've had their babies, they're being told that they'll be taking those babies up to Nauru, where they'll live in tents. You know, these are emotional issues, and we do need to talk to people about it. How would you like to have your child in a tent, 45 degrees, sharing 600 people, toilets?
Do you want to explain how families are separated as policy?
The other thing that's happening, yes, and this is policy. They keep telling us it's not, but it's happening so consistently. When the people arrive at Christmas Island on the wharf, and that's not been happening over the last few weeks, as we know, but what they do is they separate families deliberately. So there are 3 sisters in Broadmeadows. Their mother is in Adelaide with 2 younger siblings. The brother was sent to Darwin. When they arrived on the wharf, they were separated. The girl said to me, well, our brother was put in one line and we weren't worried because we thought it'll be all right, we'll all come together. He didn't. He was put into the big detention centre. They couldn't contact him by phone. They couldn't contact him by computer. It was 6 weeks later, when he was transferred to Darwin, that somebody managed to make contact and tell them where he was. All through the centre now, there are husbands and wives, there are children, sisters, brothers, separated. And they've done this deliberately. On Nauru and also on Manus Island, they've sent one group of family to Manus and the others are on shore. They do this because they want to batten people down, they want to frighten them, and they want them to agree to go back. Yeah, the things that are being done in our name are shameful, they are emotional, and you're really right to get angry about it. And we've got to change it. We've got to talk about it. Nobody knows until you actually talk about it. You know, we had 4 mums the other day brought over from Christmas Island, flown 7,800 kilometres round trip for a scan. Husbands and children left on Christmas Island. They didn't want to go back. I took them around Melbourne and showed them Melbourne. They went shopping. They had 2 pairs of knickers between them. And they have to go back now and wait out the next few months until they're pregnant. They have to be removed to Australia to have their babies. But, you know, what choice do they have? So, yeah, it is emotional. Don't be ashamed about it. Be angry. Tell people the stories. Ask them how they'd feel if they saw, if their sister was having a baby on an island with no chance of keeping the child alive.
On Christmas Island, just to give you an idea, 15 doctors were so outraged by what was happening that they leaked a 92-page report they gave to Scott Morrison to The Guardian. It included things like a profoundly disabled 4-year-old wheelchair-bound Sri Lankan girl being left on that island, a baby, a 2-month-old baby with a defective pacemaker being left on that island, that when children who have either hearing impairments or vision impairments lose their hearing or vision impairment aids, they're not replaced. That when men and women who are amputees because of war lose or have damaged their legs or arms, they're not replaced, they're left to hobble. That our claims that we put out that the government denies, that women do in some detention centres still have to queue up for things like sanitary items, that we know on Nauru they've got to queue day by day if they want birth control, and that we know recently things like when a father had a heart attack, he was sent to Darwin and his 12-year-old son, with no family, was left there on the island by himself. We know despite there being 80 pregnant women and 25 babies, there are 0 registered midwives in any of these detention centres. And we know this government policy. There is Tony Abbott, the Minister for Women's Affairs. Could you find a bigger misogynist sitting there and saying, I'm the Minister for Women's Affairs, and he is deliberately jeopardising the lives of pregnant women and babies. Now, how is that not scandalous? That's the sort of thing that should fucking bring down a government, shouldn't it? Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut across your question, but
You're gonna get it
it's even worse. It's even worse than Con says. I've spoken to a number of the doctors on Christmas Island. People don't lose their prosthetic limbs or their hearing aids or their glasses.
No.
They are confiscated when they arrive.
Yeah.
If they have any medications with them, the medications are confiscated when they arrive. One person has this role of spending all day popping pills out of the plastic blister packs into a bin so they can be thrown away. If they have any documentation relating to their medical condition, that documentation is taken away. You get awful cases. One doctor told me about a woman she was seeing. She was allowed 10 minutes to speak to her. It was difficult. The woman was thought to be mad. It was difficult because the interpreter was at the other end of the telephone in Sydney. And here they are facing each other across the table in Christmas Island. After 10 minutes, she couldn't figure out what was going on. She had to persuade the department to let her spend more time working out why this woman was so extremely distressed. Well, it turns out that in the ordinary way of things, the woman's clothes had been taken from her when she arrived. She'd been given a new set of clothes, but no underwear. She's incontinent of urine. So if she stood up and walked around, she would have urine running down her leg. That was driving her insane. She wasn't prepared to leave her cabin in order to get around because it was so embarrassing. Once eventually the doctor managed to work out the problem, she asked for incontinence pads. IHMS said we don't do those. She insisted on the point, and eventually the woman was given 4 incontinence pads a day. Not enough, she has to apply for more when she needs them. But as soon as she got them, her mood changed completely. Now, what in God's name justifies that sort of humiliating treatment of a person who's arrived here asking for our help? It is outrageous. And Pamela is exactly right. You should be upset. You should be ashamed. The time to be really desperate is when you are cold to these things, when you can react with the sort of indifference and cruelty that we see from Abbott and Morrison. That's when you have to get worried. Stay upset, stay distressed, and you know that your feelings are still vaguely human.
One last thing on that. The doctors had pleaded with Scott Morrison because when they take them off the boats, they've often been in boats for up to a month, and there are no toilets, so they're actually covered in their own shit. And the doctors had said, could you let these people bathe before we check them? Because they're actually covered in their own shit. And the answer was no. They're going to stand there and be examined by doctors while covered in their own feces. That's what this government does to me.
Okay.
No, first of all, I want to say people are wonderful and forgiveness. My question is actually to echo the sentence of the lovely lady who brought up earlier. With the government conducting such a questionable conduct towards refugees, how can the law, this question is to you, Julie, how can the law be wielded to protect the public, for starters, from lives, and secondly, to protect the refugees from what's going on?
What's so frustrating about this is that I'm at a loss to think of any acts that can cut through it. Because, of course, as soon as you find a little loophole, the government legislates its way over it. They paper over the cracks. They are determined to get their way because they think they can stay popular. I think the way to beat this is stand right outside the law. Sometimes a legal case will draw attention to something that is sufficient to embarrass the government so that they'll do the right thing. But it's getting harder and harder. I frankly think the time has come for a campaign that will galvanise public attention so that the government knows that it cannot continue to do what it's doing. I'm desperate. I don't know how to do that. If anyone can come up with a brilliant idea for litigation that will somehow clear the next one, terrific. But I'm not sure it exists.
We have time for one more question. I'm afraid only one.
Hi, I'm Kirsty, and I've been involved with asylum seekers for a while. One of the questions that I continually ask, and I think any one of us refugees people could answer, is why don't these people that come by boat go to the refugee camps, and then we can increase the numbers that we're taking from the refugee camps instead of making them wait for 10 to 15 years and then people are jumping the queue?
Which camp, where, and If you were a Hazara fleeing the Taliban and you managed to make your way down through non-convention countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, and you're stuck there in Indonesia, you've been around to the UNHCR, they've assessed you as a refugee, they've given you the ticket saying you're a refugee, but you know that you'll wait 10, 20 years before any country resettles you. And in the meantime, because you can't work, can't send the kids to school, got to hide, otherwise you'll be jailed. In those circumstances, what would you do? I mean, how would you find a cab? What would you do? Take a risk and jump on a boat? I know I would. I've never met any Australian who would do any different. And the unbelievable fact is that most Australians are criticising boat people for doing precisely what they would do if they were in their shoes. That somehow the neurons don't sort of connect. There's another solution to it, of course, and that is cooperate with Indonesia, start being polite to them, and set up a genuine processing centre in Indonesia. Because, frankly, I don't think, I may disagree, but I don't think it matters a rat's where people are processed. Refugee movement is about safe, swift resettlement. Process them on Mars if you want to. Process them in Indonesia, then they won't be getting on boats. The government says they're concerned about people drowning. What bullshit. They don't care. They really do not care. It gives them a useful scapegoat. It gives them a useful excuse for attacking refugees. What they don't want is refugees getting here. And I think we need to tell the government, if you're fair income about worrying about people drowning when they take a chance like any of us would do in their circumstances, cooperate with Indonesia, set up the processing thing there and swiftly resettle them once they're found to be refugees. We could save a lot of money and we could do a lot of good if we did that.
We have to wrap up. You want to conclude?
I just want to tell you a very quick story about some girls who were down the road, a couple of sisters. They came out of Yemen. They've been refugees all their lives, fled from Somalia to Yemen. They've got the UNHCR cards, educated in the camps in Yemen. There's been a terrible violence in Yemen, revolution. So they got out, came through to Indonesia, and they registered with the UNHCR, and they waited and waited. 14 months they waited. They were talking to people around in Indonesia, and eventually they realised because they were African, they would never get to Australia from Indonesia, because Australia does not take Africans or Rohingyas from Indonesia. So they got on the boat, and their mother rang them before they'd left the Indonesian waters and said, "You've got a letter, you've been accepted as a refugee." And they said, "It's too late, we're on the boat." And they came by boat, and they're trailing through detention. They're refugees. There are countless people who have tried to get a refugee status, and as Julian said, a status is nothing if you can't get resettlement. And that's why they're coming, because we don't give them any other choice. If we brought them down from Indonesia, they wouldn't need to come by boat. And we're not talking numbers. I mean, we're talking a few thousand. You know, we could do it. We really could do it if we wanted to.
And there's speaking of numbers, it is this government that has cut the refugee intake
by 31%.
From 20,000
to 30,750. So we've just axed it by 31% and cut $75.6 million in funding to UNHCR and the International Red Cross to settle and process offshore refugees.
Do you want to say anything to finish up, Con?
Yeah, quickly up there, yes, 1 second.
All right, thank you.
And last thing, can I say one other thing? One other thing. I said before I was feeling desperate. I'm not. Never, ever give up hope. We are on the right side. History will say we're on the right side. Never give up hope.